Hello and welcome to your weekly tarot forecast for the week of October 13th to October 19th. I'm Michelle Shea Walker, and this is your glass half full perspective on the week ahead. If you're a paid subscriber or if you tipped your reader this week, be sure to stick around till the end because that's when we do a drawing to see if you want a personalized reading. And if you're not a paid subscriber, that's a good incentive to become one. So I tapped into the energy for this week and immediately got a little overwhelmed. So I want you to plan for extra rest and nervous system check-ins for the week ahead. And it's not that there's anything specific in the astrology or in the cards that were coming forward to be making us feel this way. It's just something that's coming up in the energy. So if you're new here, I do astrology, I do tarot, but I also do energy healing and reading. So all of that is a part of this forecast. And I've been trying to rely a little less on a play-by-play of the astrology and the cards and a little more on the overall themes and meanings for each and every day. So I hope that you enjoy that. And we're going to dive in. So starting with Monday, October 13th, it feels like this is kind of an opportunity for a little bit of luck at the start of the week. So hopefully the overwhelm is not settling in just yet because it does feel like an energy that's going to be really important to potentially utilize to kind of get some stuff done at the beginning of the week so that when things might feel a little overwhelming towards the end of the week, you can have some time to rest and breathe. That being said, it's a day for pleasure because we have Venus moving into Libra. So it's definitely a day that's worth for, indulging in things that are Venetian. That could be love, it could be food, it could be aesthetics, it could be abundance, it could be beauty. And then Pluto also goes direct. So if you've been feeling stalled in sort of like big global type change that you want to see in the world or in your life, that could be moving forward a little bit better because Pluto has been in Aquarius for a while now, but it's been retrograde in Aquarius for a few months, I believe. And that can cause a little bit of frustration because when Pluto is in Aquarius, we really want to get moving forward on making the world a better place and being a part of the age of Aquarius and bringing power to the people. And that got a little put on pause to review some stuff while Pluto was retrograde. But Pluto is now going direct. So it's a green light to, masthead those protests to start whatever projects that you think are going to shift the energy in the world for the better. And it's also a reminder that we don't have to do it all at once. It's just now going direct on Monday. And it's just saying hey, the waters are a little more ready for swimming in. And if you feel called to swim in this moment, feel free. If you're waiting for that impulse or inspiration, that's okay. But for a lot of us, I do feel like there might be some inspiration coming through on Monday for either things that we feel passionate about within the global stage or things that we feel passionate about within our personal life. And they don't have to be mutually exclusive. We can have personal projects and passions that forward the momentum of the growth of the world. So don't feel like one is better or worse than the other. But we do have the King of Wands. And the King of Wands is kind of owning the authority over your own passion projects, and the things that really drive you forward. The magic in your life is coming forward with Wands cards. And when it's the King, we've kind of found our place in that magic and found a way to move with those energies and to act on inspiration when it strikes. So again, I say this is potentially a good day for some momentum, some movement forward on a passion project or a cause that you're wanting to see some movement forward on. And it's driven by your ability to own your own magic and to recognize how your passion can forward the momentum of the world, and not letting yourself get too caught up in the idea that creating for yourself is somehow selfish. Because think of any artist that you admire that's shifted your world or shifted your way of thinking or just made you feel less alone with their personal art. And that's kind of the energy of this card, is that by being selfish in our creativity, we can make an impact for others, and trusting that that will come in the right timing and for the right audience is part of this process. But we cannot get so caught up in the fact that we want to make the world a better place that we don't also dive into our own psyche, our own creativity, because that ultimately could be the way that we're meant to make the world a better place. It doesn't always have to be about, the traditional like activism that we see in the world, although that's still important. So if that's what you feel called to and that's what you're passionate about, please do. But I've had many conversations through readings as we're in the Halloween season, and I'm doing more like events where people are feeling really, like they are not allowed to follow their passions because they feel like they're supposed to be out there doing something to fix what's happening in the world. And who knows, maybe their passion project would fix what's happening in the world in some way, but we'll never find out if they don't let themselves indulge in those passions and that creativity. So indulge in your passions on Monday. Tuesday, we have a couple trines with Venus. So Venus has just moved into Libra on Monday, and Venus in Libra is sort of a good energy if you are manifesting partnerships in your life. They don't have to be romantic partnerships, although that does really lend itself well to that in Venus. But Libra in general is about like the coming together in pairs, kind of is what that energy is. Learning, if we look at the zodiac, not to go on a huge tangent, but if we look at the zodiac as a progression of a soul's energy from the lessons that we learn as we develop from childhood until death, Libra is around the time that we have found our own autonomy in Aries. We've learned the dualistic energy of ourselves. We've kind of learned about family and the signs. We've learned about being seen by the world. And I'm just in my head moving through the zodiac signs as I move through, even though I'm not calling all of them out. And we've learned how to kind of organize our lives and prioritize things. And then we move into Libra. That's when we're like, okay, I know a lot about myself. So what does myself look like when I bring others into the picture? And that's kind of the energy that's coming forward whenever Libra is involved in anything, but especially Venus moving into Libra. We do have the potential to be like, okay, I've done a lot of self-work, and maybe I'm ready to do the work within relationships now. My personal favorite resource for this is an author called Harville Hendrix. His partner in writing and research is Helen LaKelly Hunt, and they do books on just the healing that can happen within partnerships that isn't always accessible to us as an individual. And that's not, I'm a single person myself. That's not to shame the growth that we can do as single people, because there's a time and a place for both of these things. There are some people that are way too interested in getting into a relationship to do the work, and they haven't done enough work on their own. And then there are those of us that may be hesitating getting into a relationship because we're having so much fun or making so much progress doing work on our own. And there's a benefit to both, but there are aspects of your relationship to yourself, to your parental figures, to love in general, that can only be really explored and healed within a healthy and supportive relationship. So it could be that in Venus and Libra, you are calling that in either in a new relationship or in your current relationship. So I say that because we have Venus trining with both Uranus and Pluto on Tuesday. And so we have the planet of change and the planet of long-term transformation. And they are both coming together with this planet that just moved into Libra, which is about making those changes and transformations within partnerships. And then on top of that, our card of the day, I couldn't have picked it better if it was selected on purpose, is the Lover's card. So this week could be about exploring the change, the healing, the shifts that occur in partnership with others. And again, it doesn't have to be romance. It can be business partnerships. It can be platonic friendships. It can be just be learning how to collaborate with others in the world. Maybe it's part of that global cause or that passion that you're working towards on Monday, that you're learning that you actually can pull other people into your process and make it better. So it's really a calling out to be like, you don't have to do this all on your own. And in actuality, you and your project might get better if you do involve other people. So be open to collaborative process in whatever form it shows up on Tuesday or around Tuesday. And then on Wednesday, we move into Mars trine the North Node. So again, trines are supportive and lucky energies between the planets. Mars is our planet of passion. And the North Node is our planet of, or our point of sort of true north, the direction that our life path is leading us and the direction that the energies at hand are currently leading us. So again, I say that we are being kind of given the green light for following our passion this week in whatever way that shows up for you. The card that came up with this is the Wheel of Fortune reversed. So Wheel of Fortune is always kind of a upright reversed process anyway, because as the wheel is turning and moving forward, it's always going upright and reversed. So there's definitely this feeling of recognizing the good when it's happening so that you can enjoy it, you can appreciate it, you can really soak it up. And then also knowing that the harder times, the trials and tribulations are also temporary as well, and that the memory of the good times and the upswings on the wheel get you through the downswings. So this is never necessarily an indicator of either an upswing or a downswing, but you probably know yourself. If you feel like you've been on more of a downswing, it's probably about time for an upswing. If you feel like you've been more of an upswing, it's probably about time for a downswing, but don't fear it because it's part of that process of moving forward. If you stay on an upswing forever, you're not moving forward, nothing is changing, and ultimately you're going to get pretty bored up there. So this is what keeps life interesting, are these upswings and downswings. And again, with this planetary alignment of Mars trine the North Node, we are constantly moving forward towards our passion, towards our ultimate goal in life. So this might be the part of the week that we start to feel a little bit of a need to kind of take care of ourselves a little bit more. It's not necessarily signaling to me that we're not moving forward in our goals and our projects, but that we might have some stuff coming up in our emotions, those limiting beliefs that come up when we start following our passions and start trying to make change in our life. There's this feeling of sort of that like tendency to want to self-sabotage or the imposter syndrome coming through. And that is coming forward in this card of the Wheel of Fortune reversed, of even when you're moving towards what you ultimately want and what you feel really passionate about, there can be uncomfortable feelings that come up during that process. And that does not mean that you're not meant to go forward towards that goal. I'm also watching our friend the squirrel play in the tree out front, which seems to happen during these readings. And I got to tell you, I live in this apartment. I look at that tree often, and they are not always out there. So I take it as a sign also to balance work with play, because that's kind of what the symbolism of the squirrel is, learning how to be very productive, but also be a little silly and have a little fun. So that's kind of the energy of Wednesday as well. Thursday, October 16th, the moon is moving into Virgo. It moved into Leo on Tuesday. Side note, if you like to do any hair changes or beauty changes when the moon is in Leo, it's a little more amenable to that. So you can always do that and schedule that between we got alerts. We got things telling us that it's a good time for that. Between Tuesday and Thursday. So either Tuesday afternoon, well, it happens Tuesday morning, moon moves into Libra. So between Tuesday, Wednesday, and then Thursday before 1:06 p.m. Central Standard Time. If you want to do any changes in your hair, do it then. I did give myself a haircut this weekend, but I do plan another change in my hair for a potential Halloween costume that I'm going to try and align with that moon and Leo energy. But on Thursday, the moon moves into Virgo. So we're going from the more aesthetic change in energy and to more organized energy. If you have a moon in Virgo, it might be a day that you find that your emotions are coming forward a little bit more. There's also a card, which is currently underneath my cat, of the Eight of Swords reversed. So this could indicate that it's a good day to extract yourself from some sort of sticky situation that you find yourself in. It could be something small, like there's, a conversation at work that you'd rather not be a part of. It's just not good energy and you just kind of decide to not take part. You extract yourself. Or it could be something big where you actually quit a job or you end a relationship or you move from a location and get yourself to the place that you know is going to be better suited to your ultimate goals. But ultimately, this card is a reminder that you are in charge of changing your destiny, of changing your life. Even though this individual appears to be trapped and in a hopeless situation that they can't get out of, the ropes are not that tight. They can wiggle out of them. They can slide the blindfold off and they can see that there's a pathway through the swords that they can just walk through. So don't let the perception of being stuck stop you from taking action to get yourself unstuck, because I believe in you and you can do it. Friday, we have the Sun square Jupiter. So our sense of identity and our sense of expansion aren't really playing well together. Again, I do feel like this is maybe more echoes of those imposter syndromes and the things that are holding us back as we start to follow these passions. Mercury is trying the North Node, so our sense of communication is aligning pretty well with our true north and our path forward. So if you do find that you need to make a pitch or do a presentation or anything like that, if you can get over the hurdle of feeling a little bit of that imposter syndrome on Friday, it could be a good day for that. And then the Sun is opposite Chiron. So we are doing, through that imposter syndrome, we're healing some old wounds because our sense of self is kind of in an opposition to the wounded healer planet. So through this self-examination of noticing the things that are coming up for us in regards to identity and expansion and how those things, we have to leave behind a current situation and a current sense of self to become the person and have the life that we want to have. There's always that sense of sort of an ego death or a transformation or a death of your past that's happening in that process of moving towards a bigger, grander goal. And that also can cause a little bit of worry. Thankfully, on Friday, our worry card is reversed. So upright, the Nine of Swords does mean that you're kind of keeping yourself up at night. You're spinning the thoughts. You're thinking about everything that could go wrong. When it's reversed, we're moving out of that pattern a little bit. So I think that the exploration that you're doing in regards to your ego and who you define yourself as versus who you want to become, and kind of dissecting how these two things are different and what parts of you you're going to have to let die or leave behind in order to become the person that you want to be and have the life that you want to have, is going to help lessen the worry that you have at night. Because letting go and finding that state of surrender is always going to lessen the sense of worry. So there's definitely a feeling here of surrendering to the path forward and recognizing that anything, any part of yourself, any part of your life that is meant to be a part of who you visualize yourself in the future to be will be there in the future. And anything that doesn't meet you there isn't supporting your ultimate goals. So surrender to the process of the things that are needing to fade out of your life and out of your own personal being, and move forward with the knowledge that what is meant for you will not pass you. Moving into Saturday, moon moves into Libra. If you have a moon in Libra, you might find that you're more in touch with your emotions on that day. It's later in the evening. It's 11:02 p.m. Central Standard Time, so it might not even be hitting some of you until Sunday. And that's the only astrology that we have happening. So let's focus on the card, which is the Knight of Swords. So this is interesting. And I feel like this is probably happening before the moon moves into Libra, because the Knight of Swords is very impulsive and action driven. And Libra is not so impulsive and action driven. I don't know if you've ever tried to decide on a restaurant with a Libra, but it's usually, depending on the rest of their astrology, not the easiest thing to get them to pick something. So this is before that energy affects us, but we're definitely having another green light to dive into something that feels right, to dive into this new version of ourselves, this new future that we want to see. So, if I were to give you any advice overall for the week, I would say start out on Monday defining for yourself this next chapter of your life and what you want it to look like and who you want to be in that chapter. Because it feels like throughout this week, we're going to be presented with opportunities that will drive us towards that future, and also things in our life that are meant to be left behind for us to be able to get to that future. And then by Saturday, you might have the opportunity to dive into an opportunity that you wouldn't have been as easily action-based towards if you hadn't have kind of lightened your baggage, lightened your load throughout the week, and recognized that you're surrendering some things to the past. Sunday, whatever day we're on, Sunday, quieter astrology, except for the aforementioned moon moving into Libra that's happening depending on your time zone around that time period. So the cards I loved, because there were two cards that followed to the deck, and they were both threes. So again, yawns are a sign of energy shifting. Again, we come back to the message that your goals don't have to be achieved in isolation. The threes are always about finding a sense of support and community around the things that you're trying to accomplish. The Three of Cups is sort of an emotional support and kind of almost like a magical, intuitive, witchy, coven-y support. So it's like a metaphysical support that's happening here. Actually, with the Three of Cups, sometimes I even say that it doesn't even have to be physical individuals that are supporting you. It could be that you're calling on angels or spirit guides or whatever you believe in. Your ancestors are behind you, and you can ask for help. The Three of Pentacles is more money and work based. And so if there's something that you're wanting to get moved forward in the material world, that's the energy that you want. So we have two support systems in place on Sunday for moving things forward in our life, both metaphysical and physical. And they're both available to us. And the astrology is relatively quiet. So I would say go for whatever sort of partnerships, group efforts, support systems that you have around you to push you into this next chapter. And again, part of this was recognizing that some of the people you thought would be in this picture being your support system maybe not be equipped for it. And maybe throughout this week, you've had to kind of recognize that you're letting these people go. But the people that remain, that are there to hold you up and pull you up the ladder, are the ones that are really going to be in it for the long run, and they're going to help you to become the best version of yourself. So trust the process of elimination that's happening this week. Try not to fight against it. Be open to new experiences. Be open to new connections. Be open to being in partnership with people rather than simply being creating an isolation in a bubble, in a vacuum, I think is what I wanted to say. Yeah, we need to share these experiences in some way. So maybe this is that you join a class, maybe you find a mentor, maybe you just get a bunch of people that are interested in the same stuff as you together to kind of talk about your projects and to become like uplifted through that process. But it's a really good day for community, both physical and metaphysical, around achieving your goals. So think of this as like your little manifestation, coven, magic making, but also sort of like a co-working situation that could be happening on Sunday. We need other people. We need other people for our emotional well-being. And as much as there are times that we can do things alone, it is really helpful to have other people in your corner. There's a reason networking is such a buzzword in trying to achieve your goals. So find your network, find your community, find your coven, whatever it is, and really embrace that energy that's surrounding you on Sunday. That is our week. I feel like we were a little shorter on that one than we normally are. So we are going to dive into the personal reading. If you're not a member, again, you can become a paid subscriber and be a part of these readings every single week. You can tip at some links below at $1 or more, and you can also be included in next week's reading. And if you haven't done either of those things and you still want to stick around for what's about to happen, sometimes that's your intuition telling you that the reading that I'm about to give for one of my paid subscribers is actually going to resonate with you as well, because sometimes we have similar themes going on in our lives. What do you know? Because that's the whole point of the first collective reading here, is we're going through some similar stuff. So I'm going to give a thank you to all of my paid subscribers before we move into spinning this wheel. First of all, thank you to Francis. You won the reading last week, so if you didn't see that, feel free to go back and view. Also, thank you to my other paid subscribers, Caitlin, Holly, Amanda, Sonia, Jane, and Tracy. And we're going to find out who wins this week's personal reading. Holly, I think this is like you didn't win last week because you were off the wheel, but I think you won the week before. So congratulations on being on as much of a winning streak as you can be here, because we don't let anyone win every single week. I'm going to pull your cards from the Moonchild Tarot, which was the deck that I was drawn to last week, and then I was drawn to again this week. And this has a lot of, I always think of this as like sort of my Akashic Records, ancient wisdom, ancient Egypt deck. It's steeped in energy of sort of ancestors and like a whole lineage of energy that's in support of you and support of your goals. So if that's something that's coming up for you this week, the cards are reflecting that. And we're going to see what the past and present and future have in store for you. Oh, there we go. We got one. Past. That one stuck. Present. And that one stuck. Future. Okay. So in the recent past, or, past within the past 5 years or so, we have the Three of Swords reversed, which is a healing from past betrayals, past heartaches. I get the feeling that this is both in interpersonal relationships and also in business and work and friendships. There's a feeling of maybe going through a period of sort of upheaval in your life when people that you thought would be around for a long period of time were no longer serving you, and you had to kind of extract yourself from those situations, and then learning to open up to new energies, to new opportunities, and to the ability to connect to those that are, like we talked about in the weekly reading, going to help move you into this next chapter of your life. The present card is the Page of Cups, which I love. This is not only opening up to new heart connections, but also I'm getting a big hit on this, that it's a creative endeavor. There's a feeling of dipping your toe back into some creative waters that you've kind of been forsaking, is the very heavy word that I had when I come forward, but you've been ignoring some aspects of your creative soul that are calling out to you again. And so you're just like learning to kind of dabble back into that and recognizing that that's an important part of who you are, and staying in touch with yourself as you connect to the outside world as well and form these new relationships. The near future is coming in with the Five of Swords. So this does indicate that there's a little bit of self-sabotage coming forward, which I think we talked about in our weekly cards as well. This could be like that feeling of like imposter syndrome, and knowing what it is that you want for your future, whether it be in business, love, friendships, family, and then also not quite feeling worthy or ready for it. And the good thing about the Swords cards is it's always about our mental state. It's about the way that we're choosing to think about something. So you always have control to kind of shift your thoughts around something. But just know that it is normal. And it's funny, this is very relative reading to one of the advice columns that I'm working on for the blog this week, which is about self-sabotage. And it is very common to get to a point where you're on the precipice of huge life change and growth and getting everything you've ever wanted, and there's an internal fear of that change, and we naturally want to keep ourselves feeling quote unquote safe, and safe is familiar and known even when the change is better for us. And so it's kind of like training that lizard brain that this new stuff that's coming may not feel safe to that little part of the back of your head, but it's actually ultimately going to be good, and kind of pushing over that hurdle is what I'm getting from this card. So just know that it's going to be a natural thing in the process of moving forward into big change and into achieving all of your dreams, that you're going to have periods of time where you self-sabotage by not wanting to move forward, or wanting to distance yourself from people that are important to you, or being able to, like feeling lacking energy to move forward towards the things that you feel passionate about. But it's your brain thinking it's keeping you safe when it's actually not. So it's about trying to retrain those aspects of things. So you might look into some psychological techniques or cognitive behavioral therapies that are like taking actions to kind of trick ourselves out of these feelings of being stuck. And it usually starts with just like, what's the simplest action that you can commit to every single day that's going to keep you moving forward towards these goals, even when you feel a little hesitant on some unconscious level. Underneath the deck, though, we have the Death card, which is ultimately a transformation card. So you really are on the precipice of just life-changing events and shifts in your energy, that's going to feel like a rebirth. I think not just in your interpersonal relationships, but in your creativity, in your career. Yeah, there's big change ahead of you if you can just get past that fear of change, is what's coming forward. I hope that reading served you well. I am going to, in addition to that, pull you a Total Betty Goddess because they are calling to me. So we'll see who wants to come forward for you for a little extra support during this transformation. Ooh, we almost had someone to jump. I'm seeing one of the cards. I'll be interested to see if the card that I'm seeing in my head is the one that's going to flip out. It's interesting because the cards have been a little hesitant as well. Oh, except for that one. There we go. All right, hang on. Okay. Not the card that I thought it was, but a great card nonetheless. We have Yemya, played by 90s Lisa Bonet. This is it's a water goddess. So elements that go with water, magic, intuition, emotions, creativity. So it is a very creative card, but it's also a very maternal card. And I think that this is actually coming forward as like, you need a soft place to land for yourself while you're going through these transformations. So this isn't about being the mother to everyone else in your life. It's about making sure that you create that safe maternal nest for yourself to be able to feel safe during these changes and transformations. And then there's one card that didn't come out for the shuffle. So I'm kind of curious to see who's in here. We have Thetis, played by Sue-Ann from Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead, also played by Christina Applegate, the actress. And she's kind of a fake it till you make it energy. So it's really good for that like self-sabotage imposter syndrome that you watch the movie, copy a resume out of a book, make it sound fancy, and learn as you go is kind of the energy of this. So give yourself that soft energy to land on, someplace safe. Maybe your creativity is that safe place for you during those transformations, and fake it till you make it, for lack of a better phrase. I know some people don't like that phrase, but whatever works for you. Kind of put on the costume until you're ready to play the role. All right, that is the end of our reading for this week. Thank you for everyone that joined. And if you want to be a part of these personal readings next week, become a paid subscriber or tip your reader. And I will see you next week, if not sooner.